Well, what's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to all of you. We are back, and I was on sabbatical last month, so we were not here on Callings and Careers. Jessica was like, "No, we're not going to do this without you," because I told her, like, "Go ahead, go forth." What I put the King James version on her, but she did take the bait. So we're back, y'all, with Callings and Careers, and we are so excited to have all of you all hanging out with us today. To those of you that may be new to the platform, this is Callings and Careers, and our commitment, our goal is to help you discover your calling and developing your career. Callings and Careers is all about Christ-centered career coaching conversations. Did I get it right, Jessica?
I think we got all those C's in there.
Our
Absolutely.
sabbatical train has gone. It is back. I'm back in gear. Back in gear.
Getting
So
warmed up. Got to get warmed up.
that's exactly right. And our commitment is to have multiple month conversations with you that empowers you as a believer, where you don't have to turn your faith off while you're at work. That in fact you can flourish at work, bring your full selves, your authentic selves to your job, but growing in the areas that you need to grow in, and thinking how can you be your best self, representing the kingdom of God in a great way, but also doing great work and being good people, being a good person, and all of the things that go along with this. And this is my partner in crime on Callings and Careers, Miss Jessica Canty. Jessica, tell everybody real quick who you are and how they can find you and all of that.
Hey there, I'm Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. I have a passion for helping melanin and millennial women who want high achieving careers. And so if that's you, if you're ready to go from frustrated and tired to living a life of purpose in your work, check me out on jessicacanty.com or send me an email to jessicacanty@jessicacanty.com. I love talking about all things career and all things to be well in your career. So I'm excited about this conversation today.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be really good. And of course, I'm Christopher J. Harris, and you can find me at christopherjharris.com. I'm also the CEO and the founder for diversechurchjobs.com, where we help people of color in ministry find incredible ministry opportunities. And so we're very honored and very thankful to have you guys in here. And today's discussion, we are recording this live at the end of the year. But I think our discussion today will be relevant for you at whatever point in the year that you watch or listen to this. And we're going to talk about how do you start doing some goal setting and some vision planning and some reflection and preparation for the new year. And so that's what we're going to jump into. We're going to lean in on this and talk about that. Jessica, first of all, let's talk a little bit about, like, why is this even important? Why is it important for us to take this time at the end of a year or at the beginning of a new year to reflect, to goal set, to ponder, all of those things?
For a couple of different reasons. It's important for us to do a year in review, if you will, to debrief our highs and our lows so that we can set ourselves up for success. So we can determine our stress cycles. We can also determine what support that we might need. A lot of times people will go year to year in a career and be frustrated, year to year in a career, see other people promoted around them and wonder what's going on. And thinking it's all outside of their control. But when you do this year in review, when you do this debrief, this assessment, it allows you to sit in the seat of control of your career. Your boss is not going to do it for you. Your coworkers aren't going to do it for you. The latest podcast you listen to, except for this one, we give you what you need. What's it going to do for you? So it's vitally important to do that assessment in order to figure out what works well and should you be worried about anything and what are the next best steps for your career.
Yeah, that's incredible. I saw one of my friends, Anrita Brown, on here. Good to see you, Anrita, listening in today. Jessica, you just mentioned a phrase that may be new to some of the audience, and I don't want to skip over it because I think it's got some significant meat to it. You mentioned stress cycles, that phrase, that context. Just kind of break that down for everybody really quickly so that people will have some handles on that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I love to do is to help people with their mental wellness. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I'm a therapist. And a lot of times what I see what happening with my clients is that they get frustrated with some of the highs and lows of life, and find themselves feeling like they're out of control, not able to adjust, not able to address the things that are coming up. And as sitting in the seat of a therapist, I know it's a cycle. Like, okay, a couple of weeks we're feeling good, then there's a challenge coming up, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm in a panic moment. What am I supposed to do? And then we're starting to feel good again. And so that stress cycle is determining what signs in my environment are letting me know this is a pattern of behavior and what needs to change. So just like any other cycle, we realize that there's going to be some things that are going to shift and change, but determining your specific stress cycle helps you to make sure you're well during it.
That's so good. That is so good. And I think we spent time earlier this year talking about paying attention to yourself, paying attention to those triggers around you, and that kind of thing. And I think so many people are on autopilot that they actually
Right.
never stop and just ponder and think about, man, like what's happening in my life, what's happening to me,
Mhm.
what's happening around me. I know those of you that are like you, Jessica, you're a counselor, coach, you're in psychology, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. There's this phrase called metacognition, uh,
Mhm.
which is the whole idea or the notion of thinking about what you're thinking about. So yeah, yeah. So I think that's really important. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, we can get excited about the whole thought process. I know we got to get into our year in review, but that really is important because we have so many thoughts a day. And until you sit back and recognize what patterns are available or what patterns you're seeing, when we talk about that in our emotional intelligence conversation as well, you're doomed to repeat it. There's so many quotes about that, until you sit down and pay attention or pay attention to the history, you're doomed to repeat it. And if you're ready for something that's new and refreshing, or you want to make sure that you don't have skills that atrophy, it's very important that you sit down and look at your year and figure out, okay, what are the areas I need to make adjustments in?
Yeah, yeah. That's so good, so good. So there is a couple things that we want to cover today and kind of talk about. And I do want to invite those of you that are listening to this, whether you're listening to this live or listening to this later on demand. If there's ever a point that you have a question or a comment about any of this, Jessica and I both are very, very happy to have discussions with you. We want you to reach out to us. Our commitment, our goal is to see you grow, is to see you develop, and to see you be your best self. And again, we think that as a follower of Christ, there are many of us that are in the marketplace. We are spending literally half of our time, our waking hours, that is, at work. And so it's important for us to not feel like you have to turn your faith off or turn off parts of who you are as relates to your spiritual foundation, your spiritual identity, to be able to be effective in your work. That it's not either or, but it's both and. So that's part of the reason why we are committed to having these discussions with you. So if you're ready, Jessica, let's jump into it. I think one of the first things that I was thinking about, and as we look at this discussion about a year review, how do you prepare for the new year? I remember several years back, I was like, well, man, there's got to be some categories. There's just the way my brain works. There's got to be some categories for me to even be able, like, where do I start with this discussion? What areas do I need to start looking at? So I really want to kind of lay out 7 categories that people can consider when they're thinking about how to do a year review, how to think about planning for the new year. And so I'm gonna give all 7 of them really quickly. And then I will break them down if that's okay. And then that way, while we break them down, you'll be able to add discussion and your wisdom, to this. So the 7 areas, there's really 7 areas that Jessica and I want to talk about today that I think at least gives you a starting point for the areas of your life that you need to really be considering. And this is apropos, this is pertinent to you regardless of your age, education, geography, background, economics, any of those things. All right. So first of all, your spiritual life, the spiritual component of your life, spiritual. Number 2 is your mental goals, your mental accomplishment. Number 3 is all about relationship, or number 3, 4, and 5, I should say, are all about relationship, particularly your vertical relationships. No, your horizontal relationships. Horizontal is horizontal. Okay, so you've got family and friends. What does that look like where you are currently. Where do you desire to be? Where do you desire to go? Secondly, is your relationship with the society, the culture around you. What impact do you want to make? Many of you may be involved in community organizations or community projects, that kind of thing. Thirdly, and finally, is your professional relationships. That is your professional, educational, goals, aspirations. What does that look like? And let's do a review around that. The last two categories are financial and then physical. So financial health and then physical health. Financial health and then physical health. So spiritual, mental, family and friends, social and cultural, educational and professional, financial, and then physical. So let's break these down, Jessica, a little bit about why these categories are important and what they may look like. So why do you think we start with the spiritual, Jessica? What does that look like? Give me your thoughts, your wisdom around that.
Well, I think everything should start with the spiritual. Even, in our most monotonous activities during the day, if we're seeking the Lord, we know that we're making the most appropriate decision in that time. And we're not leaning to our own understanding. We're not getting into that space of feeling like we have to stretch ourselves thin to come up with solutions versus hearing from the Holy Spirit and getting that peace. Now, you want to prepare yourself because he knows how to get in there and show you the things that you don't want to see. He knows how to show you exactly the things that you need to specifically work on. So before you run out and buy a new planner, before you run out and buy the next, self-help book, which again, I love a good book. I love a good planner. Got a bunch of them. You really want to sit before the Lord and ask, what is it that you would have for me? So if it is something that, like, I would say I'm a devotional kind of girl, go ahead and buy that. But I'm thinking, like, what spiritual practices this year did you neglect? What spiritual practices do you want to get more into? Meaning, like, are you still at Bedside Baptist? Did you really want to go into church, and you didn't go in? Are there small groups that you can be a part of? Did you really think about fasting, but didn't quite know how to go about doing that? What about paying your tithes? Because all of those things are going to govern, and they should govern all the rest of the things. And it also will help you to determine what help you need spiritually. Is it some time to spend around other like-minded Christians, listening to a podcast or another with other like-minded Christians, or even just getting a part of those groups and circles that are part of your life phase? Like if you are married, if you are a parent, if you are a business owner, really making sure you're around people who have the same faith, who are journeying that same path. So it's at the top, and is the first thing you said for a reason. That has to be addressed first.
That's so good. In preparation for this discussion, Jessica, I found two quotes that I think really it really carries itself across all of these, and I want to maybe just introduce both of those now because I think to the point that you just made, people often say things that we don't often have behaviors that match what we've said. So people will say, "Man, I gotta get my life together. I gotta get back to my faith," right? But we don't have actions often that actually reflect that reality or that priority. So here's the two quotes. One is by Andy Stanley, who is a pastor, but he's also a leader, an entrepreneur, an author, all of those things. And he said something that I thought was really powerful. He said, "Direction, not intention, determines destiny." Direction, not intention, determines destiny, or our destination. So, people, good intentions are great. It's great to have good intentions. But if we don't have direction, if we're not moving in the direction of those intentions don't really matter. They're not going to create change, in our lives. And then the second quote was by James Clear, who is the author of the book Atomic Habits. And I love this one. He says, "We do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems."
Good stuff. Good stuff. That is good stuff right there.
Man, listen, when I read that second quote by James Clear, I had to sit with that one for a few hours. Like, man, that's so good, because we set a lot of goals, but we don't put the right systems in place to sustain those goals or to sustain our success in that.
Absolutely. And sometimes those systems we might need help with. So again, if you're hearing this and you're like, I do know I want to set up a system, but I'm not quite sure how to do that, that's where you look for support to be able to do that too. So if it is a system, like a spiritual system of how do I incorporate prayer more into my day? How do I make sure that I'm actually reading the Bible and not people who are writing books about the Bible? Again, I love a good book about the Bible, but you have to actually touch the Bible yourself too. You might want some support. And again, being in your local body of Christ, reaching out to your local pastor, things of that nature will help us to get on track with those spiritual goals.
Yeah. That's good. Good. All right. So the next category is mental, the mental category. So that's about emotional, mental health, personal learning and that kind of thing. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. So some of the things that you can think about are, what are some of the emotions that have been coming up for me lately? What are some of my pet peeves? In what ways have my eating and sleeping patterns changed? Are you noticing
Mm.
you're eating more, eating less? Now, I'm not talking about holiday pounds. I'm just talking about in general. Look at the whole year. Do you notice that you're eating more, eating less? Are you noticing that you're having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep? These are all indicators that there might be some anxiety like symptoms happening or depression like symptoms happening. Are you noticing that your relationships are strained? So we talk about relationships in a little bit. I won't be too much of a spoiler alert, but that's often a reflection of what's happening on the inside of us, which we talked about in our emotional intelligence conversation as well. Are you noticing that if you were to do a weather forecast of your emotions, are you noticing it's mostly rainy days? Are you
Oh,
noticing?
what the forecast of your emotions?
I
Good God.
definitely tell my clients to do that. Like, let's just chart the weather forecast. Are you experiencing some tornadoes, some earthquakes? Are you having any of those sunny days? Because sometimes, I could throw a bunch of clinical terms at people, but we all understand the weather, right? And so, especially during this season, if you're watching this during between October and March, one of the things that really impacts us is seasonal affect disorder. And that's
Mm.
because the days are shorter. We're getting less sunlight, especially for women of color, specifically Black women. We already have some vitamin D deficiency. So we really experience that at heavier rates when it comes to seasonal affect disorder. So are you feeling, just like you're isolating yourself from others? Not incubation, two different things, but if you feel like you're isolating yourself and not being able to connect with others, that's a sign for your mental wellness too. So I think, again, just look at the year as a whole. So if this might be at the beginning of your year, maybe you do this on your birthday. Maybe you do this when your boss gives you your performance review. Put it on a calendar and just look back over the last 12 months and see what was going on in your life.
Mm.
What were some of the things that you had to brush past, like grief and loss? If you
Good.
didn't have time to sit in it and figure out, like, how do I navigate this? But our mental wellness impacts our physical wellness, impacts our spiritual wellness, then that's the cycle too. So once you've taken care of who can calm the storm in your spiritual space, figure out what the storm is in your mental wellness space.
That's so good.
Mhm.
I've got a friend of mine that he and his family moved from Indianapolis to Florida
Wow.
because of seasonal affect disorder. I had not really heard of it prior to having discussions with them. But
Mhm.
to your point, Jessica, seasonal affect disorder is a big deal for a lot of people.
Oh, it
Uh,
is.
yeah, you live somewhere that is, 6 months out of the year might be gloomy or snowy or winter weather, so to speak. Or spaces like in the Pacific Northwest where it's raining the majority of the time. You don't get a lot of sun. It doesn't
Mhm.
get hot in that sense like a Florida or other states. It impacts your mood. It impacts your biorhythms. That's another phrase
Mhm.
that I heard this year and all that kind of good stuff. So, I mean, what you're dropping gems. I hope people are catching what you're putting
Mhm.
down. That's really,
Mhm.
really good.
Mhm.
So we've covered the spiritual. Oh, go ahead, Jessica. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, if and again, you want to talk to your primary care physician about this, but there are supplements you can begin to take that have that mimic the vitamin D benefits, and
Yeah.
some of that is mental wellness. So especially if you're a person of color, and specifically Black women, we do have vitamin D deficiencies that impact our fatigue levels and our ability to focus. So if you're finding that's what you're struggling with, you can definitely talk to your primary care physician. But there's wonderful, just go to your local pharmacy and look up and down the aisles. There's wonderful vitamin D supplements to get you started.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
true. Another phrase, Jessica, to this point that you just made, and this might fit more under the physical health one, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. Another phrase that I learned actually this year was circadian rhythm,
Uh-huh.
which deals with like your 24-hour internal clock of how your brain regulates itself and manages itself and remains alert and all those kinds of good things. So even paying attention to your circadian rhythm. And you can literally just Google that, because what I learned this year was the circadian rhythm is also connected to your weight gain, weight loss, and all those kinds of things. So it's pretty significant.
Oh, it is. It is because it can increase your cortisol levels, which gives you all that extra belly fat around your midsection. And again, it's an indicator. If you're working with any mental health practitioner, one of the questions they're going to ask you is, how's your sleep? Because just one night of bad sleep can impact your mental wellness. So
Yeah.
absolutely, you want to pay attention to that. So get off that phone, stop scrolling, really spend that time. Take back your first 15 and last 15. Don't reach for your phone within the first 15 minutes of waking up, and don't reach for it within 15 minutes of wanting to go to sleep. That will help it reset that rhythm.
So good. So good. So we've covered the spiritual, the mental. Let's talk about a hard one here. This is hard. Family and friends can be a hard conversation, and even hard to address and deal with some of the challenges around family and friends. So when we talk about a year in review and even positioning ourselves to, get ready to what is our goals around family and friends, man, how do we even approach this? What's the starting point for that?
So family and friends, they're really interesting things because they know how to emotionally manipulate us. They know how to use fear, obligation, and guilt to get us to do what they want us to do. Well, you got to
Yeah.
do it because it's your mom. Well, you got to do it because your friend. But then they are really wonderful sources of emotional support as well. And it can impact all the other things we're reviewing this year. So I think
Yeah.
what I've seen across the board when I'm working with my clients, when it comes to family and friends, you have to pay attention to what boundaries were honored, what boundaries were crossed. I would
Mm.
say you may also have to pay attention to their role being intact, but their reach may have to change. So I would
Oh, that's
I would
so
consider, especially this is a wonderful time if you're watching this during the holiday season. You can sit back on January, at the end of the month, January 1st, and say, okay, how did the holiday season go? Did I dread going over grandma's house? Did my uncle's jokes bother me? Were people showing up for me in the middle of the year? Or did I only see them around holidays? This is especially
so
prevalent in
good.
the African American community. Are you only seeing them on funerals and weddings? Like, what relationships can we nurture during the year? What people, like, what cousins haven't you reached out to? But I will definitely say, pay attention to what emotions come up for you when you're spending your time with your families, what boundaries were honored, and what
Yeah.
reaches may have to be changed. Their role can remain the same, but you might need to adjust how much of a reach they have into your life.
Yeah. That's so good, man. So good. And I think as quiet as it's kept, sometimes the hardest thing to deal with regards to family and friends is actually our expectations, because I think
Mm,
sometimes we have expectations for things that our family or our friends should or should not do.
mhm.
And one of the things that I've come to be able to process, reflect on, and come to terms with is sometimes, when it comes to our family and friends, Jessica, sometimes we have expectations for them that they can't meet.
That part.
And the sooner you're able to adjust your expectations to the reality of where they are, the better you will be, the happier you'll be, the more peace you'll have, and all that kind of good stuff. So I think that's really important.
Especially in the career space too. I'm seeing over and over again women that are pressured by what their parents did with their careers,
Yeah.
or they're pressuring their kids, when it comes to that. Well, they didn't get into the right college, and they didn't get the right summer job. And so we have to adjust our expectations for the current career market as well when we're talking about family and friends. You might have to have your relatives live with you for a little bit, and it may actually be hard for them to get a job because the market is kind of crazy. So yeah, I do think adjusting expectations and remembering that your life goals that are not the only signs of success. So they may have different signs of success when it comes to their careers too.
That's so good. So good. So good. All right. So the next category is around social and cultural. So this is about how we engage in the community around us. Man, there are a bazillion. I don't even know if that's a word, but there's a bazillion social, cultural organizations, projects, initiatives that you can
Mhm.
be involved in. Why is this important? Why should people be involved? And then how do we start thinking about not just what's out there, but how do we start positioning ourselves to get involved and engage in those things?
Oh, absolutely. So it's important because the way that the Lord designed our brains is He designed us to want to be in community with others. So
Mm.
even the biggest of introverts, we have to be around people in order to get things done, in order to fulfill the Lord's will for our lives, right? So our brains are literally wired for relatedness and for fairness. We want to know that there's somebody out there that gets what we're experiencing. We want to know that there's somebody out there who understands our frustrations. So it literally works against your biology if you're not in community with others. The first thing I would suggest, though, and I mean, what I suggest, it is a reality, unfortunately, that we're seeing what they're calling like a friendship epidemic for adults that are finding it harder and harder to find significant friendships that are genuine and sustainable. So you want to sit back and think about your own social connections. One of the things I tell my clients when they're like, just don't know what to do. I don't know how to connect with other people. It's hard to make an adult friend. It's hard to, have something to do on Saturdays. I always say start with your hobbies and your interests, and then realize that in 2023, perhaps you're watching this in 2024, there are so many opportunities to get in connection with other people who have the same hobbies as you. So there's a community for your quirk. There's definitely all those different spaces for you to be fully yourself in those communities. And that's what you need to do. I would, though, however, be very careful and do a social media audit. Be careful about what you're following and what you're listening to, because it can put a lot of pressure on you to want to be in every group, to want to do everything that you're seeing on there. Go back and sit back in your year in review. What are you liking? What are you clicking share on? What groups are you participating in? Only in name, like you joined the group, but you're not even participating in it. Get rid of all those things, because it's hard to, really be fully a part of any group when you're part of all the groups. So sit down and look at your social media and figure out, like, I haven't, looked at this board since 2018. It might be time to go ahead and exit that group and do those things first, so you know exactly how to make those genuine connections.
You said there's a community for your quirk. Come on,
Absolutely.
man. That's so good. That's so good. Consider that stolen. I'm telling the whole world live that is stolen. I am going to use that. And the first couple of times I'm gonna quote you, but after that, I can't make no promises.
I got you. As long as if you don't quote me, just grab the link and put it attached to whatever you're having that conversation. I love it.
No, that's so good. Because you're right? But even with that, Jessica, and I'm glad you addressed the introverts. But I think regardless of whether you're more introverted or more extroverted, that kind of thing, I've seen where people make mistakes with this because they come in with like these expectations that like deep connections happen immediately. And that's not realistic, and it's not organic to life. The deepest roots develop slowly over time. And so if you come into a situation where you're meeting people, you're networking with people, and you're giving people your social security number and your deepest, darkest secrets on day 2 of y'all meeting, you're setting yourself up for yourself to get hurt and offended and all of that. And that's just not healthy, right? Yeah, not healthy.
Absolutely. Like you said, it does take time. And I think because our attention spans now are shorter and shorter, decade by decade, our attention spans get shorter by shorter. We want things quick. We want things fast. And so that's why I always suggest to my clients, look at your own hobbies and interests first, because it's already a common ground. Instead of, trying to go into this is why some people leave their local body of Christ. It's like, well, there was nothing there for me. And if you're not making that attempt to find, okay, where is my niche? Where is that circle that people are experiencing life the same way? It can feel very isolating and it can be very discouraging. So I tend to tell people, again, slow down and think about your hobbies and interests first, and then begin to build community out of that.
Yeah, I think the other part of that last thing we'll say, and then we'll move on to the next point, because our time, as always, is getting away from us. I've often found, Jessica, that there are people who need and want community, but they expect everybody to come to them. They expect it to drop in their lap without ever sort of putting yourself out there, because at some point you've got to initiate the conversation or initiate the connection, all of that. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that or not.
Absolutely. I mean, there's all those memes on the internet of like, I want to meet somebody, or, I want to be out with friends, but I also want to be on my couch. You got to pick a struggle. You got to pick one, like you can't, as much as you can be on your phone, on your couch, if you want that genuine connection, it does take effort.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. All
Mhm.
right. And then the final category here for the three horizontal relationships really deals with your educational and professional accomplishments and acumen and that kind of thing. So, this is about, how are you going to grow professionally? How are you going to grow in your industry? Because I think sometimes we can be so busy doing the daily work that we
Mhm.
forget that we're a part of a bigger industry. So how do we recognize industry trends and industry patterns, and then whatever those goals are around our education and certification? So when I say education, I'm not just talking about like 4-year degrees,
Mhm.
2-year degrees. I'm also talking about certifications and what's the phrase I'm looking for? Continual learning.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. A lot of professions require licensure and things of that nature. And in order to maintain your licensure, you have to do continuing education units. So
yeah,
that's one of the things I love doing. I love teaching classes to help people to maintain their licensure,
yeah,
specifically around mental health practitioners, right? But the thing I always like to tell people is, please don't wait for your boss to make a career plan for you. They're not.
ooh, ooh,
Their only job is to make sure there's a plan for your job. That's it.
wow,
And so when they're doing that performance evaluation, I mean, you can get a good boss. Hear me clearly. You can get a good boss that wants to mentor you and wants to think about what's the next 5 years looking like, but they're not obligated to do so. And so if you're waiting for them, you're going to be waiting a long time. The power is yours. And so one of the things that when I work with my career coaching clients, I said is that you have to daily see what you're doing awesome. Like, what is it that you're doing well? Record what you're doing well. Because to your point, like, when you're thinking about the full year and it's like, well, what's the next move? How should I be taking care of things? You're not even going to know it unless you're seeing how you are tracking every day. If you're only thinking about the boss's goals are, it's going to be hard for you to reach your own personal goals. So
yeah,
I say daily record how awesome you are, and do those mid checkpoints, like at the end of the week, end of the quarter. See what you're doing, especially if you're wanting to get a promotion or a raise, if you're looking to even transfer departments or to transfer out of that particular company. It's up to you to set up a system, like we talked about earlier, to track where you are in your career. Uh,
yeah,
because a lot of times, some jobs, they don't even recognize you unless you've been there for like 10, 15 years. And at that point, you have to decide, is this where I want to remain in my career? So I definitely say set up the system now, to evaluate your version of success,
yeah,
to evaluate what you're doing on a daily basis. Because, and I'm probably going to butcher this quote, but there's a quote I have on my refrigerator that says, "Forever is comprised of nows." I think it's by Emily Dickinson. And so what she's saying is like it's been forever since I seen you, because it was a bunch of nows that I didn't take an
yeah.
opportunity to see you. So when it comes to your career, what are you doing with the now?
That's good. Did I get this quote right? Do not wait for your job to make a career plan for you. Their job is to have a plan for the job.
Absolutely.
Man, that's gold. That's so
Mhm.
good. It
Mhm.
listen, if you're watching this, listening to this, if you don't get anything else, get that.
Yeah,
Because let me tell you what that does, Jessica. It shifts the burden of responsibility from other people for your career plan to yourself,
absolutely.
right? And
Mhm.
I think inevitably we have learned, to put our progress on other people when there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're supposed to learn and be responsible for ourselves. So, man, that's so good. That's so good.
Absolutely.
So good. All right. So the next two categories deals with what I'll just term as health, and I'll let you deal with both of these at the same time. One is our financial health, financial stability, financial progress, which really deals with financial peace, financial legacy, and
Mhm.
then physical, which deals with primarily being our physical health and being a good manager over our bodies, right? Being a good manager
Absolutely.
over our bodies. So let's talk about those two things really fast and go from there.
I think talking about our money mindset is incredibly important, because a lot of times when people are looking for jobs or they're looking for promotions or raises, they're not addressing their money mindset, and they find themselves jumping out of the frying pan right back into the fire. So I
Good.
want you to slow down and look at your yearly expenses. Think about the ways that you had to spend your money. Think about, did you feel good about the experiences that your money was able to afford you?
Mhm.
And then you can determine, okay, is this a job that I want to stay in that's going to support support me going into my financial goals? What experiences do you want? Like you said, do you want generational wealth? Do you want to be able to own a home? Do you want to be able to travel? You don't have to do this alone. A lot of banks offer some form of financial planning. It might not be like, to the level of an actual financial planner that you have to compensate for their time, but you can at least start there. I highly encourage you to assess what are some of the things you learned about money from your childhood all the way into adulthood. Like, have you been told that, everything you have to save every dime? Have you been told how to save? Have you been told that rich people are evil people or poor people are lazy people? Whatever the thought is that you had around money, it's important for you to assess it because it's probably governing how you swipe that card, especially in these times of inflation and looming recession, all those conversations. It's really important for us to think about how we're spending our money. Of course, going back to the spiritual, we started in the spiritual. Thinking about that tithes and offering, that's going to get a whole lot of things in order. Promise you. God can do a whole lot with that 10%. That's going to get a whole lot of things in order. So once you establish that that's what you want to do, that's going to govern the other financial conversations. When in doubt, get help. And if the finances are not in order, it's going to be hard for the health to be in order and vice versa. So if you're sick and not working, that's going to impact your finances. And then your finances are going to pay for the insurance. So it's important that they both get addressed, especially that physical part. Like we talked about earlier, sleeping well, eating well, getting movement. Movement is a mental health miracle drug. Any psychiatrist, any therapist, anybody who is talking about your mental health, they should be asking you about your movement in your day.
Yeah.
And so I highly encourage you to think about those things. Of course, there's a lot of foods out there that we could be thinking about, even when we're thinking about planning our meals when we go into the office. You want to be considerate of your physical well-being. Are you noticing you're grabbing salty and sweet snacks? That can impact your mood and impact your trajectory at work as well. So definitely get help in both arenas. Some health insurance companies literally will provide you with a dietitian or a nutritionist to at least get you started. So don't think that there's anything that in our conversation today you have to do by yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of professionals out there that can support you in getting those things done.
Yeah. And some people, don't even realize this, but if you're looking for a way to start, either with your financial health or your physical health, just start documenting, like in the case of your physical health, just start documenting what you're eating and how many calories it is per day. Just how many calories are you consuming per day? Back in 2013, when I started losing weight, because at my highest, I was 360 some pounds or something like that, right? So crazy. And there was a guy at my church that started working with me. His name is Kobe. Kobe may be watching this, or he may see this later. But he invited me to get this app, and I downloaded this app, and he said, I don't want you to change anything. Don't change nothing yet. And I just want you to literally start documenting what you eat. And on average, Jessica, I was eating 45 to 5,000 calories per day. Like, not even thinking about it, right? Whether that was, a couple bags of chips here or there, or the whole bag of chips, right? You're eating a heavy breakfast, a heavy lunch, a heavy dinner, whatever the snacks are in between that. And then, every single time you're eating a meal, then you add a 250, 300 calorie drink to that, or just whatever. And it adds up really, really fast. You got bread at every meal. And then that's not counting whatever desserts you have, or a cookie here, or a cookie, just whatever that is. And it was just mind blowing to just see from a documentation standpoint. And so regardless of all the different things that we've seen over the years, Atkins, or, what's the one where you only eat during certain times? Yeah, keto, but
intermittent fasting,
all of that. At the end of the day, all of it is really about having a calorie deficit. Like, if you can get to a place where you have a calorie deficit, that's great. And then, of course, for the financial, just also documenting and paying attention to, man, where's the money going? What am I spending the money on? So I know that our time is getting gone here really fast. I just want to give a couple quick points of some action steps here to galvanize these categories that I think we've gone over. And in honor of the legacy, the impact, and the work of Miss Jessica Canty, we're going to do some alliteration.
Oh, I love a good alliteration. I do.
We're going to do some alliteration. This is going to be easy for y'all to remember. Y'all document these and get these down. All right. So the first thing, if you're gonna start really getting yourself positioned and ready for the new year, closing out this year well, first thing you need to do is you need to actually schedule your time. You need to schedule your time to goal set. What day, what time, where are you going to sit down and kind of look at your goals, look at your priorities for next year? So the first thing you need to do is schedule your time. If we were all in the same room together and we were being really churchy right now, I would say touch your neighbor and say schedule your time. All right, schedule your time. Here's the second thing. So the first one is schedule your time. The second one is stretch your thinking. Stretch your thinking. So it's so easy to go right into the new year and settle for our comfort zone. And so Jessica and I both want to challenge you today, read something that's going to fire you up. Find some motivation has a place in our lives. We should not be sustaining ourselves off of motivation, but sometimes if you need a jump start, sometimes if you need somebody to light a fire or something like that, then sometimes you got to do that. But I want to invite you to stretch your thinking professionally, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, financially, with your physical health. Stretch yourself, read something different, follow somebody on social media that's an expert in that space or that is creating content in that space so you can learn new information. If you're not learning new information, you're not stretching your thinking. So I want to challenge you. Don't just settle for what you already know, because there's still more you need to know. All right. The boy got bars today. You hear me? All right. So number one. Don't mind me, Jessica. You pray for me. So number one, schedule your time. Number two, stretch your thinking. Number three, synchronize your talents. Listen, there's a lot of stuff out there that you could be doing, but should you be doing it? That's the question. Yeah. Should you be doing it? Learn to focus. A friend of mine back in the day used to say, focus on your focus. Learn to focus on what you are good at, what you're uniquely qualified and put on the earth to do. So you got to look at your goals and say, am I putting myself in a position where I'm actually maximizing my talents, my abilities, and to use a biblical reference, what's already in my hand? I don't have to constantly reach out to other people or compare myself to other people if that's not the talent that I've been blessed with. So synchronize your talent. So number one, schedule your time to goal set. Number two, stretch your thinking. Number three, synchronize your talents. Number four, simplify your tools. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because what was it, Jessica, like August or September when we talked about simplifying your life? I can't remember. Yeah. We talked a lot about that. So I'm not going to, y'all go back and listen to that series of podcasts. We spent a lot of time talking about simplifying your life. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. So schedule your time, stretch your thinking, synchronize your talents, synchronize your talents, simplify your tools. But then lastly, you can't go anywhere without a team of people. Situate your team. You got to have a team of people that are going to help you get where you're trying to go. Jessica spent a lot of time at the top of this year. It was a very powerful point that she broke down where she talked about your personal board of directors. And so it's important for all of us to have that. And, sometimes people can mentor you from afar. You don't always have to be in people's space or their face to glean from them and to grow from them. Sometimes you can be mentored by the books that people put out and create. They're subject matter experts in certain areas where all the books that they write are on particular subjects. Well, maybe you just need to read all the books on that. There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Henry Cloud. I've read so much from Dr. Henry Cloud. It's just amazing, right? But he's a psychologist that functions in that space that helps you with relationships or your mind or, any of those kinds of things. So, yeah. So schedule your time, stretch your thinking, synchronize your talents, simplify your tools, and then situate your team. So, all right, Jessica, feedback on that, thoughts on that. Give me what you're thinking.
I'm excited for what the 2024 is going to bring for everyone. I mean, just this episode alone, this was a meaty, heavy masterclass episode. So I think that if you sit down and just listen to this, hit pause, hit replay, get an accountability partner, you'll be set up for success. That first quarter of the year is going to be streamlined for you because you'll have a system, and then success will definitely continue throughout the year. So I'm excited to hear. And if anything resonates with anybody, I'd love to hear from you, to see, just how much we're helping you all with these conversations, because we really want you all to thrive in your careers.
Absolutely. So is this our last one for the year?
I think it is. Because Christmas will be here before you know it. I think it was like in 2 weeks. Yeah.
So y'all listen, people like Jessica, people like my wife are keeping all the Christmas stores in business. Okay.
I mean, yes, we have to support our local business, right? The economy. That's our job, right? Maybe that should be a part of my financial checkup. How much Christmas stuff do you need? How much pumpkin spice? I have a pumpkin spice budget. And my 13-year-old lets me know, Mom, you're reaching the budget for pumpkin spice. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. Yeah. She's my accountability partner with that.
That is hilarious. You hear me? That is hilarious. So, Jessica, the Harris household, my wife, many other friends that we have, multiple trees up in the house, the Christmas music playing all day long, Christmas decorations, Christmas socks, Christmas sweaters, the bell earrings is belling and ringing as you're walking. The Christmas
necklace I had the necklace that lights up, the Christmas light necklace. Absolutely.
All right, Jessica, question. Okay, so real question, for real. Are you one of those people that's got Christmas decorations on the front of your car?
No, I haven't gone that far yet. I might start in the car. I might have some Christmas smells coming through from aromatherapy, but I haven't done it outside my car yet. Don't give me any ideas, because I might give me a Christmas blanket in there. And don't give me any ideas. Not yet. It just stops at my front door.
I passed by this car the other day and I said, boy, if they put one more Christmas decoration on this car, Lord have mercy.
It's their season. This is their season. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been an amazing year this year for Callings and Careers, y'all. And we're going to be getting together and planning 2024, but I can't wait. I want to invite you guys, listen, whatever platform you listen to this on, we're streaming live on YouTube, streaming live on LinkedIn, streaming live on Facebook. And so if whatever platform you're on, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button. I know that there are people that are in your circle that will benefit from the conversations that we're having and the kinds of things that we're discussing and the content, even like today with what we shared. As Jessica said earlier, sometimes you might need to sit down, listen to the replay, pause it, make some notes, and apply this in very, very practical and real ways in your own life. But also, oftentimes, y'all, part of the systems that will help sustain your success is actually having a coach, having a person that's helping you walk through these things. So, Jessica, you want to tell them anything specifically about the work you're doing or anything about your particular platform, your website, any of those things?
Yes. So if any of these things that we talked about today, you want some guidance around and you're really trying to figure out how to chart the path forward for your career or your mental health or any of the topics we talked about today, you can definitely send me an email or check me out on jessicacanty.com. You can send me an email to jessicacanty@jessicacanty.com. Easy enough to remember. And on all the social media platforms, I'm Jessica Canty as well. So send me a message and we can get started on your career growth.
And if you hit her on Instagram, the way you know that you sent the right message, she got a long dissertation that automatically replies back to you.
I'm just, I'm trying to reply. I'm just trying to make sure you know I heard you. I'm coming towards you.
That's my sister, y'all. I can bother with her like that. That's my sister, boy. Listen, you get that message back. You're like, listen, this is official right here.
That part.
This sister is not playing any games. You hear me? All right. And we're committed to helping walk alongside of candidates, helping walk alongside of organizations, executive coaching, all those kinds of things to help you implement these strategies, implement these goals, these ideas so that you can flourish. We want to see everybody be the best that they can possibly be in every single area of your life. And again, we don't believe that faith should be a slice of the pie. We actually believe that your faith is the crust that holds the whole rest of the pie together. And so if you can get all of these things together, you can be your best self and be your best self to even as you engage with others, your family, your coworkers, your bosses, the world around you, and all those kind of good things. So this has been Callings and Careers. We're so honored to have you with us today. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button. We can't wait to see you guys in 2024. And so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.